Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Tougies Take podcast. We are back again. It is two of the guys, two of the fellas, because our beloved Sin for the win is off in the land of the Finns still for the next little while. But we're happy for our boy, and we're happy to be here with you. My name is Tougie, joined by the king of the hydration station, Endo Mills.
Dude, you have no idea. I have to drink so much goddamn water because I'm still sick. You can probably tell from my voice, it's still not the same as it usually is. It's a lot more bassy. I kind of like it a little bit more, not gonna lie.
Yeah, you get like a Barry White vibe going on.
Yeah. The best part about it is that it requires me to pronunciate my words a little bit better, so I become a lot more coherent. That's something that I've noticed, at least.
Should be sick more often.
Yeah, knowing my immune system, God, I'm surprised I'm not sick even more often. Dougie, how was your day? Because you had a very interesting day. Because I believe, stuff happened. You didn't do the sports gamer today because something happened and it inconvenienced you in the greatest way possible. Discuss.
That's true. The joys of getting new appliances, everybody. Being a homeowner with my wife. The joys of I've told stories about the house that we bought. You know, it was built in the 70s and was owned by the people that built it up until we bought it.
Magnolia walls? Any magnolia walls or no?
Define a magnolia wall.
I don't know. I've been listening to a band formerly called Slaves, now they're called Soft Play because the name is a little bit, There's a thing, one of those songs, Magnolia, where it's like 1 in 5 UK homes have a magnolia wall. And considering that how old that place is, I figured you know what, you might have one magnolia wall, maybe.
Maybe I don't know what the hell it is, and I'm trying to look it up, and all I'm getting is different paint colors. So I don't know.
Wood paneling.
Oh God, yeah, this office.
Yeah,
this office.
There we go.
Oh God, dude. So again, I've told stories about this house before. So essentially, like I said, it was owned by the previous owners. Husband and a wife. The husband passed away about 8 years or so before we bought the house. So basically it was okay. The widow was trying to hold on, do what she could. And then eventually it's like, all right, she can't live on her own anymore. So her and her kids that sold the house and everything, they were great in terms of trying to help us out and stuff like that. The problem is the guy that owned this house was a very do-it-yourself kind of guy, which has led to some problems that we've had over the last couple of years now being in here. This office was, the sheetrock and everything.
Right.
Glued to the sheetrock was this dark brown wooden paneling. So we had to pull off this flimsy ass faux wooden paneling to only discover that the sheetrock underneath it was there's just no way you could make it presentable. So I got to take a sledgehammer to the walls and knock out the walls of this office and then put up the new sheetrock.
I remember you were talking about that, and I was joking hey, if you need any manual labor, just I'll just go across the border for a week. And that offer is still up there. By the way, it's still up there completely.
Duly noted.
Yeah.
They that wasn't the only wall too of this house that had to be taken out. So that was fun. And essentially, to continue on the story, it was okay, we've done our job of replacing and upgrading appliances, especially. We moved in, we immediately bought a dishwasher, freaking washer and dryer, stuff like that.
Right.
But the fridge was still in good enough shape until over the last month or so, it started making weird noises, and we're like, it's time.
Yeah.
So I essentially suffered from PTSD today because having to take everything out of my fridge, put it into bags, and then put it in the garage because the garage is cold this time of year. So it was kind of like a refrigerator. Reminded me of the PTSD of moving, because moving is not a pleasant experience. Anybody that has moved, a couple times, you'll know the process of taking all your shit to then bring it somewhere else sucks. It absolutely sucks.
I had to deal with that with Paulina. Not to interrupt, but for her, she hates moving because she had to move constantly. All throughout her teenage years, and she moved over here from Russia to go for school and hockey and everything. So she always had to move. So that's why, right now, we're 3 months into our stay at this place, and we still haven't fully unpacked, kind of thing.
Honestly, that's fair.
She's like, you know what? I'm gonna have to go again. I might have to leave again. I'm like, we have a 1-year lease. We're here at least for a year. It's fine. It's like, I need concrete. I need stability. I'm like, well, we're not gonna be able to buy a house because it's stupidly expensive. And yeah, that's pretty much. I'll talk about it. Just buying a house. It's not affordable in the city of Toronto unless you're making $100K a year, and I'm not.
That's why you got to move to the middle of fucking nowhere, like I did, man. It doesn't have too many perks, really. It's kind of nice to have your own little space. You might have to travel a smidge to do some things, but man, at least I'm not living in an apartment. We have a house, and it is underrated. The idea of house hours, horrifically or not underrated, but you don't quite get the feeling until you have it, especially when you expect to be like, all right, yeah, I gotta rent my entire life because shit's not affordable in the city type of thing. So yeah, if you can, and that doesn't just mean you, that means for anybody. If you can, I highly recommend moving to the middle of fucking nowhere if possible. It's a fun time.
My only option realistically is moving a little bit more east. Moving a little more west. Living in a townhouse and just doing that. Honestly, I'm a townhouse kind of guy. I like having just enough space, not too much, not too little. So I like to work within my means. I'm a very simplistic kind of guy. Give me my hockey, give me my food, give me my woman, and I'm all good.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that sums up this podcast pretty well. Put that on a t-shirt, damn it. But yeah, let me tell you though, this was my Christmas. This was my Christmas. When my wife asked me, what do you want for Christmas? You're impossible to buy for. Because I am. Throughout the year, if it's like, oh, I kind of want this, I'll just get it. If it's within my fucking means. It's not like, oh, I want a Lambo, so I bought a Lambo. No, I don't drive a fucking Lambo. Obviously, you've seen the YouTube subscriber number. But if it's something like, oh, this game or this jersey, whatever, it's like, I'm just gonna fucking get the damn thing. So she's like, well, what the hell do you want? And I'm like, a new fridge. And now that it's here, of course, we had to go to the pain of taking the freaking door off the hinges, not of the fridge, but to get the fridge in the door. That was fun. Now that it's here, I'm happy. That's all it takes. I'm approaching the big 3-0 in a couple months, and what do I need to be happy now? Give me a new refrigerator and a quiet night of nothing, and I'm good to go.
There you go. That reminds me of my cousin who they live in a very nice area. I want to say they're well off, but they're good. They're comfortable, very comfortable. So as a joke, as they're getting the fridge brought in because their fridge broke down, my cousin says to his mom, my aunt, oh my, as the guy's bringing it in, it's like, oh man, look, mama, no more cooler. We don't have to put stuff in the cooler no more. We can just do it, everything. And the delivery people looked shocked. Legit, oh my god, they had to put stuff in the cooler to defrost and then do all that. And she's like, no, shut the fuck up. We have a fridge. It's totally fine. So good.
Goodness.
Perfect prank.
Tremendous. Well, with that, I hope you all enjoyed the fridge talk and everything, but we do have hockey to talk about today. We also, have some viewer questions. So we're gonna get to a couple of those. Endo Mills. How does that sound?
That sounds pretty good. Sounds great. Get right to the questions.
Tremendous. And I think they're all hockey related too, from the looks of it. So the first one is from AJ, which is, what is the biggest what the fuck they're this good / what the fuck they're this bad teams through the first quarter of the season? Now, I feel like there are two obvious shouts here, and it is kind of the response that AJ had as well for really his own nominees for this. So I think we can go one of each, right? In terms of the what the fuck they're this bad, it's 3 of the bottom 5 who shouldn't be in the bottom 5. It's either Minnesota, who just fired their head coach.
Yep.
The Ottawa Senators, who brought in Vladimir Tarasenko and were wanting to really kind of take that step forward. You spent, $4 million on Jonas Korpisalo. Or it's, I think most people shout, the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah,
and we've talked about it all season long. Just like, how are you this bad?
I mean, the Oil are on a 3-game win streak right now, so they're kind of picking the pace back up. And McDavid has like fucking 12 points in like 3 games, or the fuck it is. So to say that they're bad, yeah, they're bad. To say that they can't right the ship, 100%. I think a team like, for example, who's a team that's at the bottom that is like absolutely your season's done, cooked, whatever. I don't think so. I think maybe like Columbus. That's it. Columbus and the Sharks. Yeah.
Columbus. It's gotten bad amongst that fan base where they're just losing all hope, all optimism.
Mm-hmm. Nash is getting upset on Twitter. It's like, how are we this bad? How are we this bad?
And I hate to say it, but I don't. It's karma. It's karma.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say it too. It's totally karma.
You could have brought in a different coach, had the entire offseason to prepare, but instead you brought in, give me your phone, and this is what you get. I'm sorry. I like the Blue Jackets, but, you reap what you sow. So no sympathy. In terms of the best team, I feel like there's the primary one. It's the Vancouver Canucks. 4th in the NHL right now in points. League best goal differential. Nobody thought the Canucks would be this good. Playoff team, they're in the conversation. I don't think anybody thought they were going to be 4th best team in the league through 23 games played. Now, obviously, too, if you go off a points percentage, they were a little bit lower, but they are still top 10. So, but still, I think you got to give the shout to Vancouver.
Yep. The most inconsistent start, and it's not like I'm wishing for them to fall off, because that's not really what I wish them for.
It'd be funny, though.
Their current like trajectory is not only is it like not unheard of, but it's kind of on pace with how they did. I think the 2010 season, like when they had the riot and everything, is that then they got off to a really, really hot start as well, and then they just kind of like, was mid halfway through and all that. Right. But at the same time, if you get to a hot start and get to a hot lead, it more or less gives you more. I wouldn't say it gives you more like comfortable, as in like you can lose a few games here and there and still be fine, because that's a terrible way to manage a hockey team. Except, Babcock's idea with the whole, when he was with the Leafs, his idea was like, every week we got to get certain amount of points so that way we can guarantee ourselves, win there. We'll be fine. Like over like a 10-game streak, you want to get like this many points against high quality opponents, low quality opponents, and that's what they aim for. Obviously, you want to win every fucking game, but like if you want to strategize it out that way, then like that's one way to do it. But yeah,
unless you have anything else to add.
I got nothing else. Keep going.
Fair enough. Our next question. Considering the NHL is the worst league for the best sport,
Yes.
Make the case for another professional hockey league that is currently active that someone could watch instead of the NHL.
The Professional Women's Hockey League, which finally announced that all the arenas are going to be playing in, and they've basically pulled an AEW where no one can sit where the hard cam is in certain arenas, which is really funny. It's really funny to see that happening in a hockey event, especially when the arena sizes are so all over the place. You got some teams playing in a full capacity NHL arena with the XL Energy Center with Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have some teams playing where there's like 2,000 people tops. Like, I expect the PHF to bring in numbers of 1,000 to 2,000 people per game. I don't expect them to like sell out every game. I don't expect them to sell the XL Energy Center at all. That's
no, I mean it's
like 18 to 20,000 people for a hockey game for women's hockey.
Yeah, so literally, I had to look it up on Hockey Reference for the XL Energy Center. That has a listed capacity for the Wild at just under 18,000 people.
Exactly.
That is, it's funny because you mentioned like the wrestling comparison, right? And there's been that conversation surrounding AEW. There was that conversation surrounding WWE at times before the popularity of their product turned around, where they were booking out the big stadiums that can fit 12, 15,000 or more people, and they'd be getting 8. And it's like, at that point, do you book a smaller venue and fill it to the rafters instead of booking the biggest venue and it's a percentage full instead of at capacity for that particular event?
Right.
The idea of the PWHL, which I do agree, like, hey, that is probably the best answer in terms of what to support. I do agree it's interesting for the PWHL to have a couple of arenas that are NHL size as the home for some of these teams. The New York team, which again, for a second, I'm like, oh shit, what was their name? They don't fucking have one.
The New York Bridgeports, because they're playing out of the fucking Bridgeport Sound Tigers, not the Islanders, because not on the fucking island. They're playing out of their arena, which is
they're splitting games between the Total Mortgage Arena, which is a 10,000 seat arena that houses the Bridgeport Sound Tigers of the AHL, and then they're also going to play, I think it's 5 games in Bridgeport, but 4 games at UBS Arena, which is the home of the Islanders. Which again, the Islanders' new barn, as they call it, their capacity is 18,700. Meanwhile, the Islanders are averaging 16,000 fans a night right now. So not even the Islanders are selling out this place. It makes you worried of like, fuck, how empty is that place going to look? It's going
to be bad. Like, it's going to be AEW Dynamite versus WWE PLE. That's how bad it's going to be, and it's unfortunate.
Like the Boston team. Go ahead.
I was going to say, even when the PHF had their final in Toronto, when it was the Toronto 6 versus, I think it was a Connecticut Whale last year, and that arena, they only, I believe, like that for seating, it was only on the visible side with the cameras.
Yeah,
barely anyone sat where the hard cam was, and like, I get you want to show that the building's like full and everything, but if you can't sell out an arena that's like 1,000 seater, you kind of have to readjust certain things. Like when the Toronto 6 were playing out of Canlan, York, and I get Canlan, York's like way further out than people want to usually trek out for hockey. It's like North York. You have to, whereas, like downtown Toronto, you have so many rinks. Matamy's downtown, Old Maple Leaf Gardens, that's where it is. What is it? Scotiabank Arena and Ricoh Coliseum, Coca-Cola Coliseum. They're all within like a 20-minute walk of each other. But to get to Canlan, York, you have to take a subway for either a half hour or drive for half an hour to get to the arena. You're going to the outskirts of the city. There's like nothing there. in terms of like food, entertainment, nothing. You're on a university campground.
Right. And that brings me to the Boston team, who announced that they are going to be in a smaller venue at the Tsongas Center, but that is in Lowell, Massachusetts, not Boston. Lowell is 30 miles away.
Yep.
So you're talking 45 minutes on a train, potentially up to an hour-long drive, depending on fucking traffic, which, depending on the time of night, let me fucking tell you, traffic in and out of Boston is a fucking nightmare like it is in any other big goddamn city. Yep. So it just makes me wonder, like, okay, you had the right idea. You picked a college-sized venue that houses like a lot of concerts and stuff like that. But still, it's a little bit more out of the way. I know Ottawa's running at TD Place Arena, which, funny enough, is in Ottawa.
Yeah,
whereas the Senators aren't. So that's nice.
I was gonna say this is the whole entire thing of like Ottawa versus Canada. Mm-hmm. That's the entirety of what the PHL basically seems like it's running off of. PWHL, excuse me. And with the TD Gardens, like you only have the hard cam side because like there's a fucking wall on the other side. Like if you look at it, if you haven't seen the arena for TD Garden, I believe TD Garden, TD Place. No, the Garden is
TD Place Arena, which is the home of the 67s.
Yeah, TD Place Arena. Front of the Minions everywhere. Like if you haven't seen it, and if you play NHL 24, it is that one fucking arena with the wall and the siding on the top of the roof. That is what it basically looks like. Like verbatim, that's what it looks like. And excuse me, my nose just got really itchy. Like that's the only arena I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense for it. Because you can fill up that whole entire arena. I think their capacity is like 4,000. I hope this league grows, but the arenas that they've chosen are weird.
Yeah, I mean, you have some in an OHL junior-sized rink, one in a college rink, and then you got Minnesota playing at fucking XL Energy Center, which is a massive fucking building.
Yeah,
you have them continuing to kind of drip feed information. It's like, here's the teams. 2 weeks later, here's the schedule. And then the top comments are all, tickets? How do we buy tickets? Is there a TV schedule? It's just like, is that
they
the best
don't have one
about it? The idea of like, you're drip feeding out this information instead of just hitting people with, here's where they're playing, here's the schedule, here's how you can buy tickets, let's fucking go. And that's not what we're getting at the moment. So
it's like going to Starbucks and asking for a decaf, and they give you a pour over decaf. So you're waiting for that thing to fucking drip down and go through. And you're just like, I just want my coffee. I just want to have this thing and know what I'm getting, and I want to wait for it. And like I get the whole thing. Everyone's kind of impatient, and the wait for things to happen. But again, like I mentioned before, there's been like almost zero press releases from the PWHL. All the information they've had to get from people has been from other sources. The one thing that's the biggest kicker of it all, the PWHL is having a 3-on-3 event at the All-Star game with the NHL this year.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't seen a single thing from the NHL announce this. It was basically kind of like, oh, here's everything that's going to happen. Oh, we're also going to be at the All-Star game, I guess. Mm. It's kind of expected because, the PWHPA was there.
Right.
And a lot of those teams have ties to the PWHPA. And I guess, the Billie Jean King and Mark Walter group were like, hey, yeah, we can put these people at the same level because we have the same connections. Like, I want this to be successful. I really do. But everything has just been rushed out. I don't want to say it has been rushed out. It feels rushed. This could be completely planned and like internally like stagnated to actually have releases that come out and everything. But it just feels like they have a deadline. Well, they have a deadline, obviously. But they're just like barely making ends meet to get there. I think the whole idea they should have done is have the merger, meet with the players, talk about how they want to get everything set up, and then wait a year. Like you have no hockey, but wait a year, or just have player showcases with every player who decides to be part of the PWHLPA. That's a fucking mouthful. The player association. Every player that is like a signed up player association. They're like, okay, cool. We're gonna have showcases throughout the year that showcase all the talent. So that way, the next season comes around, 2024, 2025 comes around, they can start off fresh, brand new with the actual league, which isn't necessarily wrong because that's what they were already doing with the PWHPA showcases. It was the exact same shit, except now there's 6 teams, 6 really shitty done identities, which are kind of all the same, and people trying to support the league and do what they can to support the league, and feeling like they are basically being led on in a way. Like it feels like this is self-sabotage from people trying to make women's hockey not happen when the previous fan base with the PHF, which was really passionate. It was really passionate. The fact that they were like constantly watching the Twitch streams and everything, that was a cool thing too. Just be able to pull up a live stream on Twitch and watch women's hockey or just watch hockey in general. And it's not some dude trying to steal a feed from, TSN, Sportsnet, or whatever broadcaster.
So, to the question, because we went on a little side tangent about the PWHL, but that was fun. Yep. Make the case for another professional hockey league that is currently active to watch instead of the NHL. And
the American Hockey League.
Well, I was going to say, right? Like you have the AHL, the ECHL, and then plenty of other professional leagues like the SPHL or amateur leagues that are abundant throughout the US and Canada.
You want to watch a bunch of guys from junior and like a bunch of old men fight? Go watch a Fed game. Go watch a Fed game. It's just guys fighting, and then like one goalie who like really wants to play really, really well and wants to be a guy, and then has like a 12 goals against average in like 60 minutes played, and it's been on like 4 different teams. Not calling anybody out. It's like 4 different teams, and is still trying to hold on to the dream. I mean, power to you. Power to you for trying to stick on the hockey. I respect anyone who's trying to do that, but it's just crazy. Like that league has like 5 fights a night per game. Guys getting flipped over constantly for picks and traded like left and right. It's you get passed around in that league. Crazy.
Every league does revolve around the idea of getting to the NHL. So, not to say that's the goal of everybody there, but every league does add or operate as a pipeline.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's the main Canadian junior leagues, AHL, ECHL, the NCAA, and then even the big European leagues as well. In terms of, I don't really think you can go wrong following.
I think the only league that is an exception to that is the BCHL, because their pipeline is directly to college. They have had like 190 US commits last year after they announced this year that they're going to be going independent from Hockey Canada. And basically they're like the top junior A league in, arguably I would say top junior A league in North America, except for the USHL. But even then, that's kind of like, that's more development for there as well. So like BCHL, USHL, those are pipelines for colleges. There's not a lot of guys go to the NHL out of those programs.
I don't really think you can go wrong in supporting any kind of league that's either a little bit more local, whether it's the college side of things. I don't think you can go wrong being like, hey, I live in Indiana, but I'm going to start following the SHL, which isn't the easiest thing to do, but it is possible.
Games at 8 a.m.
Yeah. better than being over there and having to stay up until 2 a.m. to watch a start. But, like I said, I don't know. I think there's an argument for every other league that's out there as a positive, even if there's a very good chance that, okay, if you're so goddamn talented, like you're going to end up seeing players leave for the NHL, or the best players of that particular league are going to be guys that were in the NHL and then came back. Looking in the SHL right now, top 5 scorers. Number 1 is Kalle Kossila, who played with the Anaheim Ducks. Second, Ty Ratty.
Hey,
St. Louis Blues legend Ty Ratty.
Let's go.
Second goal scorer or second goaltender in terms of save percentage is Max Lagacé, who was with the Vegas Golden Knights, among other teams. Like that's just going to be the examples that you see more often in these leagues. So I mean, every single one has its perks, has its benefits. It is easier now than it's ever been to follow what is going on in other leagues aside from the NHL. But at the end of the day, you want to see the best of the best. Well, you know where you have to go. So, oh goodness, what else do we got for question? Okay, we got one here. Connor McDavid has demanded a trade to either Boston or Toronto, because I'm presuming Sin isn't on this week. I'll ignore San Jose. What are your respective trade packages to land Connor McDavid for your favorite team?
My direct quote for Sin, if this was a trade to the Sharks, send him the whole ocean. Bring him the whole ocean. Oh man.
I mean, it's funny because if you're the Sharks, like whatever the hell they want is the answer. It doesn't matter. God, for the Bruins. I mean, right. Like we've talked about the idea of like, Oilers fans being like, hey, Jeremy Swayman or Linus Ullmark would look nice. And it's like, again, we've had that conversation. There's nobody on the Oilers who would be as important to acquire than who you'd be getting rid of and their importance, meaning how important those two goalies are to that team. You would have to get somebody who is equal to, or if not even really more important, and can make an even bigger impact. And that's one of two players on the Oilers, McDavid or Draisaitl. So I can't imagine that deal happening. If you're talking Connor McDavid, though, I mean, the idea of the Bruins acquiring McDavid is to play him with David Pastrnak, which, holy fuck, could you imagine? But I just don't know. Like, Swayman would have to be in the deal. And then you're talking Patra would have to be in there. Yeah. You're talking Swayman, you're talking Patra, you're talking Jake DeBrusk, you're talking 2 firsts, another prospect. I mean, it would have to be a massive, massive fucking deal.
Also cap space too, so it's gonna be after like a pretty sizable player would have to leave as well too.
Yeah, so you have about $8 million between DeBrusk and Swayman. Patra's obviously on a base level deal,
right?
So you'd probably be talking like DeBrusk, Swayman, Matt Grzelcyk, and Derek Forbort to even out the cap. I mean, this is a trade that you literally could not pull off at NHL 24 because there aren't enough asset slots. That's how massive that trade would have to be for the Bruins to pull it off, just from a cap standpoint and from a pure value standpoint. For the Leafs, though, I feel like it would be a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Especially on this day, November 30th, 2023. It's a sign and trade. It starts with a sign and trade of William Nylander.
Yeah.
He's the easiest piece to move right now because you could negotiate the terms that he would want in Edmonton. Unless you think it's going to be over 10, and then maybe you have the conversation about Mitch Marner.
Like I feel like
it's one of those two.
Yeah. I feel like right now in the current state, okay, I will I will tackle this now before I'll tackle it when we talk about the Florida Panthers. What is with Leafs Nation and always finding the whipping boy, no matter what? It is insane. Mitch Marner set a Maple Leaf record for the fastest to 400 assists, and in that same like instance, they're saying, "Oh, trade him." That man puts up like 70 points averages just in assists alone. You take away his goals, he's worth his contract alone. Like, Mitch Marner isn't a goal scorer, although he put up like 30 last season. That's the thing. He can be a goal scorer, but his comparison, even when he was drafted, I believe, was Doug Gilmour. And Dougie wasn't a goal scorer. He was an assist guy.
It's funny because I Googled Maple Leafs scapegoat, and it brought me to an article from 10 years ago by Jeff Veillette, formerly known as Jeffler, on LeafsNation.com, entitled Breaking Down a Scapegoat, in which he talks about Dion Phaneuf and the idea of like, okay, Dion Phaneuf needs to go. Joffrey Lupul should be the captain. And after Dion Phaneuf, you had Jake Gardiner and Nazem Kadri and Justin Hall and John Klingberg this year, even though rightfully so, he was bad. Every single year, essentially, you can go back to a Leafs roster and be like, oh yeah, we hated that guy. You know, even if it's not fully representative of the entirety of the fan base, it's like, that's the one guy that caught a whole lot of shit that year. Phil Kessel was in the mix. I don't necessarily think from the fan base, but especially from the fucking media. Steve Simmons, I mean, Jesus Christ, like the attacks on Phil Kessel for not being good enough when he was the star player of that goddamn team.
Yeah, that guy who was brought in originally to sell seats. And he sold seats pretty fucking well.
Like I said, there might be some validity to the critiques of like, okay, Justin Hall not necessarily good enough, but then a lot of the conversation was, well, it's his usage, and that's a coach problem. A lot of conversation about Jake Gardiner and, well, good plays, but when he fucks up, he really fucks up. Nazem Kadri, okay, we didn't want to get rid of him, but he gave us no choice in the playoffs. There's always a conversation, but like you said, it's always somebody who's going to be in the spotlight as that guy. I mean, it's the fucking SpongeBob meme of the fish pointing. That's what it is. Like, it's always got to be somebody in those fucking crosshairs every time. And I feel like that's the same way for every team, but it's always amplified when it's the Leafs because of the size of the fan base, because of the spotlight that they have. Like, don't get me wrong, like the Arizona Coyotes, again, I love the Coyotes, but in comparison, it is what it is. The Arizona Coyotes and fans of that team have their scapegoat. The problem is it's just not amplified to the point. Like I feel like if you are online, every single fan knows exactly who the scapegoat of the day is for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, it's not the same way for, all right, who's the scapegoat today? Who are Seattle Kraken fans mad at today? Who's playing so poorly that Kraken fans are like, fuck that guy? I don't fucking know. Who is it for the New Jersey Devils, who are underperforming right now? I don't know. Buffalo? Everybody? I don't fucking know. It's just one of those things where it's like, just because the Leafs are just such a massive team, you're always going to kind of know and have that extra vitriol there. So anyway, this was a question about trading for Connor McDavid.
But I mean, like, we did tackle it head on. I mean, you're going to have to trade Nylander or Marner. You're going to have to give up. Like, they don't. does Edmonton need a prospect? No, they need actual talent because their talent pool is kind of piss poor a little
They
bit.
would demand both, which is why
Yeah.
in my trade proposal, it's the idea of like, okay, you get roster players like DeBrusk, like Grizzlick, but you also get prospects like Patra or Lorai for the defensive side of things. The Leafs have the higher end talent. So the Bruins would have to do more of a mix of current roster players, picks, and prospects. But the Leafs have the higher end talent that they could give to the Oilers in that situation. The Bruins do not have the ability to be like, oh, we could get rid of a Marner or a Nylander. The only guy on that level is Pasternak, and there's no way you do that trade. Maybe you could consider McAvoy of that level on the defensive side of things. They trade Charlie McAvoy, they're fucked. So
Yeah.
you have to scramble for all of these other assets. Where for the Leafs, it's like, okay, Marner or Nylander, who do you want? Let's work it out from there. I feel like they have an easier starting point, but then it gets a bit more difficult for them afterwards with the extra pieces because they've already leveraged a lot of draft picks. They have their 2024 first and 2026 first, but they're missing their first two picks in 2025. They actually don't have a second round pick over the next 3 years in Toronto.
Yay.
And then prospect wise, you know, there are names, obviously. Your Easton Cowans, Fraser Mintons, Ovchinnikov, Alex Steves. I mean, there are names out there. But in terms of what that combination would look like, who knows? I think the Bruins have the advantage in picks and prospects. I mean, come on, like, no disrespect to Easton Cowan, first round pick. You're taking Matt Patra and Mason Lorai, who already have NHL games played and who have looked good at times, especially Patra. But like I said, the Leafs have that better high end talent. So there is a situation, I think, where either team could realistically, as realistic as a Connor McDavid trade is, there would be a way to realistically come up with a trade. It's just, would the Oilers want a trade offer that is high-end talent for high-end talent? If they did, you'd go with Toronto. Or do you want the more general building approach of NHL-ready players who can step in, pick some prospects to build around? I think they would need the Bruins offer more instead of just being like, okay, instead of Connor, now it's Mitch Marner and Leon Draisaitl. I don't think that fixes what they need to see fixed.
Yeah, I would say if they're going to make a move, the Leafs are losing Topi Niemela, and that is their best offensive defensive prospect that they've had I want to say in a long time, but since maybe Morgan Riley. And that's a big statement for me to say. But Topi Niemela, it looked good. He looks good when I watch him play, and he's got 9 points in 15 games as a defenseman. Top scoring defenseman on the team.
21 years old.
They're gonna have to get rid of him if they want to make a play like that. Oh shit!
Uh-oh.
You want to break this?
Let me go to Twitter. Ooh, okay.
Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
Big announcement right now. Breaking news. The Calgary Flames have acquired a 5th round pick in the 2024 NHL draft and a 3rd round pick in the 2026 NHL draft from Vancouver in exchange for defenseman Nikita Zadorov. He goes to Vancouver.
I feel like that was the most obvious trade in the world. Like, a lot of people, especially once the Beauvillier trade happened, which I don't think we had gotten to talk about yet, but Anthony Beauvillier was dealt from Vancouver to Chicago for a 5th round pick. I feel like once that happened, people are like, they're clearing space. It's like the meme of, you like Krabby Patties, don't you, Squidward? This was you're trading for Nikita Zadorov, aren't you, Vancouver? And they did. It was very well known that Zadorov wanted out in Calgary. It seemed like Vancouver was the top of the list in terms of potential suitors. And they got him for not very much, I would say.
That is a good price. Not very much.
Yeah. So he's on an expiring deal at $3.8 million. 28 years old. Can play both sides, which is a positive. He's solid. He's not this super insane player. But it is a solid player to add right now for a team that is stepping up, and to do it for not much. So even if you don't plan on re-signing him, he is a solid addition to this team. So at face value on its own, in terms of what does it mean for Calgary, what does it mean for Vancouver? And it's funny because I just saw, in terms of refreshing the timeline, No Sleeve says, "Oh, gotta say, shout out to our friends No Sleeve Gaming, of course. Toronto could have paid that price, couldn't they?" And I feel like that's going to be the biggest takeaway: is for a third and a fifth. What other teams that could have used a player like Zadorov? Why didn't they get ahead of that and pay that price? We'll talk about Toronto in a second too, because we're not done talking about them. But in terms of what this deal means for Calgary, you had no fucking leverage. Again, is my takeaway, because you talk about some of the other trades that they have made as of late, even not even that far back, but the idea of Adam Fox just being like, "I'm not fucking signing there." So he gets what, Delta, was it Carolina, and then elected not to sign? Yeah. And then he elected not to sign. And his rights were traded to the Rangers. You talk about like losing Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk making it all but clear like he didn't want to stay. Tyler Toffoli, who you had to deal this summer for Sharon Govich and a third round pick. Hopefully the connection's going to be all right here.
No, not that.
The Sean Monahan trade, future considerations for Monahan, and you gave them a first to take him. And they've had different GMs at this point. I do feel like, because their GM right now is Craig Conroy.
And the previous was Treliving, right?
Yes.
So it makes a sense that, fucking Treliving balked at this opportunity to make a trade with Calgary because he mismanages players. And look at Toronto right now, 5th in the Atlantic, which honestly is kind of like you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. You have a stacked roster. You're 5th in the Atlantic. Something's got to change.
Yeah.
Do I think Treliving's gonna go like this? Like again, like Sleeve said, this is what Calgary got for that trade. They didn't really get anything. Leafs could have made this trade. They have cap space, especially with Klingberg basically potentially being shut down for the season.
Yeah.
Of all things, you make a trade when he becomes healthy and move some cap space around, so that way you can sign other players and everything. I just don't know what's going on. Brad Treliving. Like, I'm not sure if you're here in Toronto to promote Boston Pizza at this point because your dad, but like, I don't get it, man. And this could be a whole thing of like Toronto syndrome where every player available was supposed to be a Leaf. With Patrick Kane, Tanev, Zadorov,
right?
Like where they just gravitate towards like, oh, it could be a Leaf, but this is a situation where it could have filled something that we need. We need a defenseman, someone who's just kind of. We need a defensive defenseman. We need a guy who's just gonna beat the fuck out of people, and we got beat the fuck out of with him in the building, and he scored in our building, and then players are probably saying like, oh, we need you on our team, kind of thing, allegedly. Why didn't you do something? The entire trip on Sweden, the entire trip in Sweden, everyone was looking at Klingberg and being like, "Oh, he's definitely gone. He's gonna get traded or whatever." And it's like, "Oh, he's done for the season, or done for a while with his hip issues." And they're still like, "Oh, we could have grabbed him. You could have grabbed him. You could have even sweetened the pot a little bit, and you would have been able to get it." I feel like Toronto has to sweeten the pot. I think that's the big thing, is because Toronto have been very open with issues that they've had, and other teams are not willing to help them because fuck you, you're Toronto. So many times that Kyle Dubas has wanted to make a trade and everything, and he probably couldn't because he had to sweeten the deal a lot. And just couldn't warrant that.
I will like to say that I openly acknowledge that a Leafs fan made it all about the Leafs in a deal involving 2 other Canadian teams. Very on brand, sir. Well done.
Yes.
You do have a good point, though. And again, we're going to talk about the Leafs here in a couple minutes. I do want to say, though, about this particular trade. Like I said, for the Calgary Flames, a 3rd and a 5th for Nikita Zadorov looks awful. And it is. But at the same time, I do not blame GM Craig Conroy in this instance. He's been on the job for 6 months. He is still dealing with trying to clean up the mess that Brad Treliving left behind. Because this is still Brad Treliving's roster. Let's be honest. I mean, Craig Conroy has 1 draft in 1 free agency period under his belt as the GM of this team since being appointed on May 23rd. This whole deal of Zadorov not having any value, that is because of Brad Treliving, in my opinion. Because, again, it's his roster. This team is what it is. It's a tough spot to be in. Especially, too, when these teams knew, oh, this guy wants out. The second a player makes it so public that they want out and that they're not happy, you lose any leverage that you have. You're done. Like, you're starting negotiations. Pretend it's a fucking arm wrestling match. You're starting negotiations with your hand 3 centimeters, the back of your hand 3 centimeters above the table, and expected, like, okay, now win this trade. It just doesn't fucking happen. It's not Over the Top, one of the best hokey action movies of all time, if you want to call arm wrestling action. For the Canucks, this is great. You didn't have to give up much to get bigger, to get tougher on the back end, to get a really solid defensive defenseman who has that, to use a Nick Olczyk-ism, that has that bite in his game. And yeah, for the Canucks, this is great. This is great. I mean, it adds to, I'm sure, the confidence of the players that are already there to be like, shit, we're playing really goddamn well. And now they're adding to the team. That instills that further belief of like, yeah, shit, like we feel like this could be something. Or, management feels like this could be something. Here we are. I think, like you said, though, the thing that people will focus on here is the fact of who didn't get him as opposed to who did, which brings us to the Leafs. And it was at the bottom of the little Leaf section that we were going to talk about, but we could talk about it now because Mark Giordano is out week to week with a broken finger, joining Timothy Liljegren and John Klingberg on IR. Liljegren, obviously, with the knee injury, John Klingberg with the hip issues. And it leaves their blue line in a spot where Cap Friendly has them listed. This was updated 8 hours ago. Riley and Brody, Lagesson and McCabe, Benoit and Timmins, with Max Lajoie as a healthy scratch. And they didn't seal the deal for Nikita Zadorov.
I have a feeling if they were to have those talks with Calgary, it was before the stadium before the global series, and then they just kind of didn't see eye to eye. And then after, it was basically, all right, cool, you don't want him anymore? Cool, I said, bye, we're done. Vancouver, what you got? Nothing? Fuck it, we'll take it.
Oh, man. So, yeah, I do wonder where the Leafs go now. I can't help but think this is a sign of things to come for the Calgary Flames. Like, I do see people speculating, like, man, like, why deal him now? Instead of waiting at the deadline. Maybe you could have gotten a better haul, at least like a 2nd round pick. At the same time, I do feel like it says something about Greg Conroy, the idea of just like, we want people here that want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a play to try and win people over and to try and be a player-friendly GM now that you're 6 months in. And from the outside looking in, everybody's saying, haha, that team's on fucking fire, and not in a good way, because Calgary, and it's a tire fire. I think, again, it's about kind of an entirely rebuilding process for the Flames, at least like at the high end of, again, like, all right, Bradshaw Living didn't work out, new era, try to be player friendly, try to flip the narrative here and flip the script on what people are saying about us. Easier said than done at this stage. So hell of a trade. I'm intrigued, and we'll continue to kind of keep an eye out on what's being said about this. But that's a good deal for the Vancouver Canucks, and I don't think it's this gigantic L for the Calgary Flames. I mean, especially now, it's way too early. You could say, oh, they could have gotten more. It is what it is. The conversation will continue to be who else should have traded for him, which Leafs fans are going nuts right now. You'll have the extension conversation in the future, and then how does the deal look after that? How does the deal look after these picks are made? Do the 2 picks end up staying with the Calgary Flames, or are they involved in a follow-up trade that flips that somewhere? Like, we don't know. Talk to me in 10 years for a definitive answer. But at base level, yeah, Calgary, maybe they should have gotten more, given how many teams might have been intrigued. Vancouver did very, very well. We were talking about the Leafs as well. And I want to segue to that because they had quite an interesting night. The Florida Panthers actually have had quite an interesting few nights on their little Canadian road trip. You had the ridiculous game against Ottawa, where everybody on the ice got a penalty. A game that featured 167 penalty minutes, beating last year's game high of 166 penalty minutes in a game that was on April 6th of this year, featuring the Sens and the Panthers. For whatever reason, these two teams fucking hate one another, which means you are rooting for the Sens and Panthers to play in the playoffs, because when the referees put the whistles away, Jesus Christ, if you like physical fucking bloodbath hockey, you're rooting for a Sens-Panthers matchup in the playoffs. So keep an eye out on that one. But Endo, I wanted your thoughts on this really quickly. The double tap. Because I was watching that overtime and that shootout, and I saw the Florida Panthers celebrate, and I turned off the game. 3 minutes later, I checked my phone. LOL, Leafs win. Your thoughts on the double tap? Because I don't think I'd ever seen that exact situation before.
It's rare. That's it. That's all I got. I'm about to cough right now, so that's why I'm trying to speed up what I'm trying to say.
Just hacking up a lung. Endurance M.
Yeah. It's just sometimes it happens. It happens very rarely, but it happened. The thing. And yeah.
Strong answer.
I like it as a goalie when it's actually called. I've had some in beer league where it's a double tap and they don't call it, but I'm like, you touch it again. You gotta see that. I didn't see anything. It's like, fucking use your eyes, buddy. Come on.
You know what's funny too is I was looking at our little run sheet here, and I realized that we had a point about the Calgary Flames too that we could have mentioned last time out, and that was that Pierre LeBrun reported that Noah Hanifin was close to a $7.5 million extension with the Flames, but that it's currently on hold, and that he could be traded with that agreed upon extension in place. So
rebuild, Celebrini.
Calgary is going to be tearing down over the next couple of months leading up to the trade deadline. That is a thing that's going to be taking place. So keep an eye out on that. Final 2 things. Let's go to Detroit first. We'll keep it within the division that we've been talking about with the Leafs at least. Endo, Patrick Kane is a Toronto Maple Leaf. No, he's not.
Oh, man.
He's a Boston Brew. No, he's not. Patrick Kane has signed with the Detroit Red Wings following off-season hip surgery. And I don't really have an opinion. Because it's a wait and see, right? Like, he's coming off of a major surgery, just turned 35 earlier this month. This will either allow him to extend his career while still playing at a high level, or perhaps more likely, he's going to be absolutely cooked. 35 years old, major surgery for a high skill player that doesn't necessarily have the size to go down the traditional route of I was a skill player, but now let me slot into that defensive or physical role to try and extend my career. He doesn't, at least historically, for his entire career, basically, hasn't played good defense, and he's not a physical player. So what he has is the skill. And eventually, you hit a point on that decline where it just doesn't matter anymore. We saw it with Jaromir Jagr, who was able to extend that skill. You know, he didn't have the speed, but he had the hands and the footwork to still be somewhat effective at the NHL level into his early to mid 40s. Is Patrick Kane going to retain that footwork, that mobility, along with the hands that he has to be able to offset whatever this is? Like, that's the question. Is just, where is he at right now? And we don't know. But I do think for Detroit, it's a good time to take that risk on a player like that when you're not exactly guaranteed a playoff spot this season. It's either, well, shit, that didn't work, and all right, hey, at least we tried, or it does work, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, we still have a really good version of Patrick Kane, and now here we are, we're in the playoffs, and our chances are looking just a little bit better. It's a good move on their part, but in terms of what to expect from Patrick Kane, man, it's all best guessing for anybody at this stage.
Yeah, I feel like when a player starts really, really late in the season, they don't have that same drive to get through. I mean, look what happened. Excuse me. Look what happened to Wooly Nylander when he held out for his RFA. Look what happened to Justin Williams when he came back and wanted to join up with Carolina for their cup run. He wasn't the same guy. Look at Mike Fisher when he just randomly retired and came back in and wanted to be super dominant with the Predators and try to help them out on their cup push. Didn't really end the proper way. I mean, he is 35? Like, he just turned 35 like last week. So he's not necessarily old. He's a little bit older in hockey terms, but I believe when he did his deal, he had everything set up before or whatever. So like, he's not eligible for like the 35 plus contracts where it's all performance based. Kind of like what, Corey Perry was on, where it was like he got like $2 million up front. The rest was salary. But again, it'd be interesting to see how he does. Like, I don't expect him to be like, his last game was May 1st, 2023.
Yeah.
And even then, like, he had like 0 points. His last game where he had a point was April 24th. And I think, yeah. So like, he can produce and get points, but at the same time, it'll be interesting to see how he's using the lineup. I just feel bad for the guy that Detroit has to send down because Patrick Kane just showed up.
Yeah. That's hockey though, isn't it?
That's how it is. It's a business.
Who did they send down? What is their transactional history? Calls and assignments. I think it was
unless we're able to keep a guy.
Yeah, they've only registered Kane so far. I don't think he's technically... They haven't technically sent somebody down yet, so
right.
They have everything to play for to try and not be the guy that gets demoted. Meanwhile, Daniel Sprong lost his number. So, what a guy.
He'll get a Rolex or something from Patrick. That's fine.
So our final
original.
point.
Nothing original. It's always a fucking Rolex. Get I don't know. Buy him some clothes. Do something different.
Get him a nice shirt.
Yeah. Buy him some socks and underwears, but like $1,000 socks and underwears because you guys are fucking millionaires.
Buy him a shirt that'll see him put into a video game like The Rock was in like WWE 12, where he had a character. He had like the modern day version of Dwayne Johnson, but then he also had The Rock from 1999 or 2000. And the character was literally titled, instead of The Rock, it was The Rock $500 shirt. That's the title that popped up. So Daniel Sprong, $500 shirt, playing left wing for the Detroit Red Wings tonight because Patrick Kane showed up.
It's nice.
It is. Our final talking point today is about what has been the biggest story in hockey this week. You know it. We don't have to drag it out. To end the show, let's talk about Let's talk about what everyone's been talking about. Corey Perry, who was officially cut by the Chicago hockey team, of course, following all the checks and balances, basically. We kind of talked about the idea of them being incredibly bad at PR. That continued this week. You had the Kyle Davidson press conference where, again, I do think he came off as sincere and genuinely kind of upset by the situation. But at the same time, that has still allowed, up to that point, because of how long they waited, it still allowed people and rumors to fester. Heading into that press conference, it was, Connor Bedard's mom, which was so fucking immature. And we talked about the history of that bullshit.
Childish.
Kyle Davidson mentioned on the Perry situation at the press conference, there was no involvement of other players or players' families. 2, that it was a workplace thing. 3, that it was an individual team matter, meaning it was an in-house situation, no other club was involved. And that 4, the Hawks players still didn't know what happened. LOL on that one, more than likely.
Yeah, they all know.
And the 5th is that it wasn't a criminal action. So, because you didn't, again, there's ways to give information and details while protecting those involved that doesn't lead to speculation, because that's all Twitter was after this was, okay, go down the checklist. So it probably wasn't this because they said it wasn't criminal, but it could have been this and this and this. And we still don't have the full details. And
what this reminds me of? This reminds me of everyone headhunting during the Hockey Canada scandal. Which one? I'll let you decide which one it is because there's 2 of them.
Fair.
Within the World Junior Championship scandal with the players, there were people on Twitter literally going through the entire list, being like, "Oh, it can't be this person and this person because they were in NCAA. They were playing in the Hobie Baker. They got this guy's a Hobie Baker winner. He didn't do it. He didn't do it at all." Right. And I'm like, how about you wait until the investigation's done, so that way we have all the proper information before you start headhunting people. And then I got like blocked by like a bunch of people on Twitter. I'm like, you're a bunch of fucking idiots. God. But yeah, you can't jump to certain things. The meme of, oh yeah, he fucked Bedard's mom. It was funny for a minute. Maybe like 5 minutes. Because the idea of that is so outlandish. Guy brought in to be like a veteran influence for the young players, and some weird scenario like that happens. The worst part about it, sorry, not the best part about it, is that literally everyone grabbed that joke and went like you didn't even jump the shark. The shark went to you. You didn't even have time to jump it. It was just not funny anymore. Like that's someone's fucking life, Yeah. Weird. Like memeing aside, it's like, yeah, I get it. A little funny, a little joke, haha. But when you repeat the joke, God, at least 1,000 times over the span of 4 days, it loses any sort of comedic value.
Right.
Rule of 3s, people. Rule of 3s.
Now, obviously, you had reporters trying to put out some details. Frank Zaravali reported that according to sources, an alcohol-fueled incident involving Perry was alleged to have occurred in Nashville on November 17th, the night before the Hawks played the Preds, during a Hawks-organized corporate event that included sponsors and team employees in attendance.
Oh.
Obviously, we still don't have further specifics on what it might be, but a lot of people are saying, well, if, team sponsors are involved, situation where you could have fucked up money-wise, maybe you said something, you did something, whatever it may be. All of this has led to Corey Perry releasing a statement today, which is interesting.
Very interesting.
I would like to sincerely apologize to the entire Chicago Blackhawks organization, including ownership, management, coaches, trainers, employees, and my teammates. I would also like to apologize to my fans and family. I am embarrassed and I've let you all down. As a result of my actions, which again, we still don't know in full, there has been speculation and rumors. I'm sickened by the impact this has had on others, and I want to make it clear that in no way did the situation involve any of my teammates or their families. Most importantly, I want to directly apologize to those who have been negatively affected, and I'm sorry for the additional impact to others it's created. My behavior, which again, we still don't know what it was inappropriate and wrong. I have started working with experts in the mental health and substance abuse fields to discuss my struggles with alcohol, and I will take whatever steps necessary to ensure this never happens again. I hope to regain the trust and respect of everyone who has believed in me throughout my career. Once again, I am deeply sorry.
Now, another thing about that is, earlier this week, there was a thing about Scott Darling having a conversation with Pete Blackbird, and I believe it's DJ Bean. Don't know his actual name. I just know his Twitter handle on their podcast, What Chaos. Great podcast. Listen to it. Check it out. Support Pete because Pete's the fucking best. He's short king. About the NHLPA Player Assistance Program and how they help out and assist people. To which Scott Darling basically said, no. The NHLPA are monsters. Now, everyone has their own scenario to work with. I'm assuming by being in the Player Association program and the Player Assistance program, you have to follow by their set of rules. So, for example, you have to go to their clinic, you have to go to their thing for whatever scenario it may be, because it encompasses a lot of things. As you see, multiple players who've gone in for separate different programs that they've disclosed or not disclosed. To me, it sounds like the Chicago Blackhawks, again, I'm speculating because I'm just reading how things are. With an incident like this, we don't know the full things about it, but we know that alcohol is fuel. We know Perry's thing about mental health and alcohol was both involved with his statement. Maybe there was a situation here where the Blackhawks were like, this is a little crazy. We're going to put you in the program. Maybe he opts out of the program. Maybe that affects the clause, and they have to release him. Who knows?
That's been one thing that a lot of people are confused by is the idea of so he's not going into the player assistance program, which, yes, as you mentioned, it's that idea of, okay, a program that coincidentally, the same time, around the time that this is happening, you do have a former player saying the program's fucked, but that's just one viewpoint.
Exactly.
At the same time, Scott Darling's truth is his truth. At the same time, that specific program isn't necessarily designed to move forward with kid gloves. It is designed to say you have a problem that needs solving now.
Yeah.
Because here's what's at stake for us as this professional sports organization. Like the sentimentality, the feelings of it are going to be lost a little bit because the whole concept of it is business first.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So I can see why a player would be resentful. But again, his details, other people's experiences, they are what they are.
Yes.
But the idea that Corey Perry's not going into the player assistance program when it is now openly out there that alcohol was very much involved. is interesting.
Yes.
Because Milan Lucic had his incident earlier this month,
right,
involving alcohol. He is not on the team, but technically hasn't had his contract voided and has entered the player assistance program.
Mm-hmm.
So people are saying, like, okay, what's the difference here? And again, they fucking open Pandora's box for people to fucking speculate, and it's annoying as fuck. And people have a right to be annoyed about it. Like I said, there are ways to not give details that'll lead people to being like we saw with the Kyle Beach thing, where initially Kyle Beach wasn't going to say, "Hi, I'm Kyle Beach," but people did their fucking digging, and it just got to the point where he's like, "Fuck it, I'll just say who I am," because people were already fucking like, "It's him, it's him, it's him, it's him." Like you said with the 2018 World Junior Team, it's that idea of like, it's him, it's him, it's him, it's him, even though that still hasn't been confirmed. So with this situation, yeah, you want to avoid giving too much detail as to where people are like, it's this person, because people have already done that. Whether or not they're right or wrong, we don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But it's that idea of you can give enough information to say, here's what happened and why. But what is the difference? What is the major difference that has allowed Chicago to cut ties with the player? Meanwhile, someone like Milan Lucic is still under contract and not terminated by the Bruins and has entered the player assistance program. Like you said, is it that Corey Perry denied going? So the Hawks said, okay, well, we're going to release you instead. How severe of a situation is this to be deemed not criminal, but an actual criminal act by Milan Lucic was not enough to get him sacked, and he's now in the player assistance program?
Right?
Why do we have to, as fans of the sport, have conversations like this? That's what I'm wondering. What potential legal thing is standing in the way? It's going to come out eventually. And I hope that the justification, or what they're trying to use as justification for being vague, is in fact justified. Because otherwise, if this comes out and it's deemed as something where it's like, you probably could have just fucking said that, they're going to take a lot more goddamn heat. As opposed to if when this comes out and people go like, oh, fair play. Fair play that you didn't share those details immediately. We understand. The problem is, it is Chicago, and you don't get the benefit of the doubt because people haven't forgotten. People haven't forgotten. If this was any one of the other 31 teams, you'd probably get benefit of the doubt. Not to the same extent that you would have 5 years ago because of what Chicago has been in the spotlight for in the past couple of years. But at the same time, like Chicago, especially of all the teams, you don't get to be let off the hook here. People want to know because otherwise, especially for Chicago, it looks like you're hiding something. Whether or not that's the case or not, that is how a lot of people are going to look at it. So overall, we wait and we find out to see what happens. But all in all, it's just not over at this point. It's not, and it's just what a shitty situation, basically, that the NHL finds itself in again, because of course. Zendo's on another cough break. So, and anything to add, or can we wind things down so you can give your voice a rest and enjoy being sick and chug water?
I don't have any time to relax. I have to go play. Excuse me. I have hockey at 8:30, so I gotta go.
Thanks.
Probably take a nice shower, and get some tea, and then just relax for like 10 minutes and run out the fucking door.
Fair play. Fair enough. Well, in the meantime, then, as we wrap things up for this week, do you have anything going on from a content perspective?
So when I brainstormed that idea, I think it was last week with Tougie, with doing just dropping in and being like the goalie, the guy. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot today. Played one game, first shot went right on the chest, off the glove, in the back of the net. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this shit. It was perfect positioning. Should have been a guaranteed save, and it just did not do the thing that it's supposed to do. Great game. I feel like drop-ins in this game in NHL 24 play worse than clubs. I don't know what it is. Just the shot consistency, the way the puck moves. I feel like in drop-in matches, it's more sporadic than when you're playing club matches. Maybe that's just me. That's how I feel. I might stream tomorrow. Who knows? I don't. Probably like 2-3 p.m. Just gonna do whatever. Maybe I'll stream that. Maybe I'll actually start Be a Pro again. Who knows? You know where to find me. Twitch.tv/Tougie24. Also, we've raised, I think it was $2,000 for Movember from that party on Saturday that I got blackout drunk from. So it all went to a good cause. My liver has recovered. My throat has not. But we're good. We're all good.
Fair enough. With that, I will still be on the YouTube side of things, the Twitch side of things as well. We are still grinding away at some roster editing on the NHL side of things. Trying to get that done. I'm enjoying the process, but obviously EA sucks, so it's a difficult process. But I do think the rosters this year are going to be super interesting now that we've had the NHL Edge info to work with to further make skating more realistic as we're comparing NHL players to NHL players. And the salt that you're going to see from some people over, what do you mean that guy's that slow? And it's like, buddy, I'm just looking at the numbers. It's going to be so fun. So excited about it. And hey, we're closing in on, of course, the start of December. It is not this weekend, but next weekend, Saturday the 9th. It's our next charity stream over on twitch.tv/Tougie24, as I'll be working with some friends yet again this time to raise money for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, as we'll be running similar to what we did on the UFC side of things over the summer, an AI versus AI tournament. We'll be doing it this time on WWE 2K23, only because the AEW video game did not have the character randomization options that I needed for this particular tournament. But this is going to be fun. Hopefully we have the likes of Endo and company in the Discord call with me for commentary purposes. That'll make it that much better. It's going to be a lot of fun. The Tougie24 Holiday Bash. So, hey, look forward to that sneaking up on us very, very quickly. With that, everybody, we love you. Make sure as well to check out Sin for the Win Productions on the YouTube side of things. He still has videos being posted, even though he's overseas. And for now, we love you. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.